We're over a quarter of the way through the season and 3 teams still haven't picked up any wins. Aston Villa.
It's mad, isn't it?
Everton. West Ham. Let's have a look at these teams, Rach. Villa had a shocking first half against Liverpool. I was watching this game and it felt like one big headache. I just felt like one big error. It was a comedy of errors, if you will. The new 3-5-2 formation, and then there were triple changes made at half time. Robert DePaul said, in the first half, we just didn't show up. That's terrible to see as a coach. You feel as if you did everything in the week to prepare.
It's kind of throwing your players under the bus a little bit.
100%.
You were the one.
I did all the prep. It's their fault they didn't deliver.
But you changed entirely your way of playing. You changed your formation.
Yes.
And then you're surprised that your players weren't up to top notch.
And expected perfection.
Because the thing is, it's not like they've been playing badly. So to look at that and go, well, the way we get a win is to change our formation against Liverpool. And actually, I thought it was really interesting that it was something Liverpool recognised immediately in the first half and massively capitalised on. And Matt Beard even said it in post-match. He was like, they set up like this and we were able to cut through them through the middle.
Definitely.
Which isn't great. And it makes you wonder then, how much trust are you putting in your process if you change it relatively early on? To be fair, he did say pre-match that it's the longest he's had to wait for a win when he's taken or he's coached a team. So I guess he is a bit impatient at the moment, which is understandable. But you have to think to where Villa were last season and how they were struggling and the narrative around the fact that they were struggling, and they faced very difficult opposition
100%.
last season.
Yeah, that was killer. That was a killer start.
Which is interesting. I guess the difference maybe is that they are playing some nice football, less maybe not in the first half of this game, but maybe that's helping.
I struggled to pick apart what was really going on, but I think it was just the disorganisation at the back for me. I think it felt like there hadn't been long enough to kind of bed in this new formation, and therefore people didn't really know where they were supposed to be. I think they were being picked apart. I think a lot of what Liverpool were trying to do was obviously play out wide and deliver balls in, which is obviously working because it felt like the back three were kind of very much kind of staying central almost, kind of protect the goal area but not going out wide because they didn't want to overexpose themselves. And I feel like it just felt like a Liverpool free-for-all. I think the first goal that came off the back of that, the cutback, and then it sort of it skidded 3 players goal. And then the finish again,
Taylor Hines.
It was absolutely glorious. Really kind of like a sharp shooter running onto the ball, and it fell. I think had she not actually scored that, I think it probably would have been a penalty, because there was a Villa player who clattered into, I can't remember who it was now, but they went down like an absolute sack. Looked quite awful, and then obviously up pops Taylor Hines with a goal anyway. So I think that was obviously quite fortunate. But
she doesn't score many goals, and to get a brace,
not bad. Not bad at all. But yeah, it just felt like they were being absolutely picked apart, and that first half was almost a little bit uncomfortable to watch. Second half obviously a lot better, but it just felt like it was too late in the day to sort of start putting things together for me.
How difficult is it for a team to make changes in game? Because I recognise at halftime you can get everyone together and go, right, this isn't working, we need to change this, we need to change that. Is it impossible to try and shift things around during a half for a manager to get that information to the squad?
I think it depends on the gravity of the changes. I think if you're looking at a sort of team-wide shift, then that's
like a formation shift.
That's 100%, I think, a lot harder to do than saying, okay, well, you've been playing deep, actually push on a little bit wider, or actually when this happens, can you drop in back to this situation, or actually we should be, our analysis or stats have been saying, let's start going with the wider balls or the balls over the top or whatever it is. So I think things like that's really easy to latch onto. But when you start saying, okay, well, if she drops here, you drop here, that person drops here, it then becomes like it's all a mechanic.
Yeah, and it required changes, didn't it? That's why we saw those changes at half time.
100%. So
you almost have to just be like, well, shit, this isn't working. We're going to have to ride out these 45 minutes.
Yeah, and do your best with it. But I think it's a learning curve. I mean, 100%. I always admire people who want to change it up, but I think it obviously
you've learned just not to do that.
Yeah, just don't. Just
harsh lesson.
There are lessons here to be learned, and they have been learnt. Everton, let's talk about them. They suffered a 5-0 defeat to Chelsea on Sunday night, which knocked them back to bottom of the table with a goal difference of -11. Captain Megan Finnegan said after the game, and I do really rate the honesty from her, the club situation right now obviously isn't ideal, and that is impacting the women's side in some ways. Once the new ownership comes through, hopefully we can start seeing changes for the better, because this league is ever growing. It's growing so fast, and that is why the standard is so high. Everton Football Club cannot be left behind. Rach, what were your thoughts on those comments?
I really back her for saying it. I'm sure it probably feels like you get to a point where you're like, okay, we can't keep going the way we're going. And, I think it's the same old issue that Everton had last season as well. And there's only so long they can go on managing the way they're managing. Like last season, it kind of reminded me of when Arsenal went through all the ACL injuries. It kind of galvanised the squad. They were like, you know what, like we're going to have to play different positions, and that's okay because we're going to play for each other. And to have it happen so early in the season, again, it's very hard for the team to be like, oh God, we have to galvanise and like ride this out again, because you have 2 ACL injuries to key players. Such a long season to have to play like that.
Definitely.
And they're coming up. It's always going to be a free hit for Everton. I did kind of feel like the way they went into that game, it didn't feel like they went in with that kind of fight, maybe. And you look at how Palace, I appreciate the scoreline was different for Palace, but the first half from Palace was really good, and you could see that they were trying to do things. But I just felt that Everton were kind of went in with this
defeatist.
And which is a shame. They're obviously, they want to play out from the back, which I respect. They want to draw Chelsea in and create those spaces, but perhaps that Goodison pitch just seemed so big, and players just seemed so far away from each other that when they were creating those spaces, they weren't being able to get the passes to each other quick enough, and Chelsea were just picking them off. So that will be frustrating. And some of the goals coming from mistakes and stuff like that. So I think well done to her. She is captain, but well done to her to kind of call these things out, because I can't keep going on with this kind of level of budget and essentially kind of lack of backing, because having such a thin squad is not ideal in this league, especially when clearly there are issues around injuries in this Everton squad, which is something else I think needs looking at.
I think it just feels like it's such a shame, because it feels like almost this is the scary season that Everton really have a chance of going into the Women's Championship. And that's not anything that we obviously want to see, having, been up in the WSL for so many years. And I think I do really have quite a lot of sympathy for the squad. I think what they've gone through, like you said, with the injuries, also the sort of the new ownership and things like that, that's obviously been a very turbulent time for them. But I think it is sometimes about their mentality. Like you do see clubs like you said, like Crystal Palace, they're coming into the WSL for the very first time. They probably appreciate that they are going to have an absolutely torrid time on occasions. They're not going to get wins all the time, but there's still this like heart. And I think maybe that's to a certain degree because you're the newbies and you still have that enthusiasm and energy that it's a sort of new feeling. But I still see more heart in a team like Palace, who probably go into a game expecting, probably on half the occasions really, to not pick up any points. I saw more heart again like from Palace than I did with Everton. It kind of feels like there's a very kind of a low mood in the squad.
I think as well that comes from the manager too, because Laura Kaminski is so clear on learning from every game, and I think it's fair to say that from Crystal Palace's performances you can see that they're learning.
Definitely.
And implementing things and improving in areas. And I think maybe with Everton it just feels a bit like they're being told to just get through this game kind of thing. And that's no disrespect to the players, because I think they have a really good squad actually. I don't think there's enough of them. I don't think they have enough depth, but it must be really hard to kind of G yourself up every match knowing you've got players not in the right position, or people are having to put in a shift in a position, or maybe for a number of minutes longer than they weren't really planned to, and then you're coming up against a Chelsea who could probably field 2 world-class starting 11s. Do you know what I mean? And that is a hard thing to mentally prepare yourself for, I guess.
Gosh, Everton, Do
you know as well, there's a theme as well that I'm starting to notice with some of these teams, and I know we're going to get on to West Ham as well, but they're really struggling in front of goal to convert chances. And, when Everton played, I think it was Manchester United, they deserved something from, they created chances but could not put the ball in the back of the net. It's the same with West Ham. It's the same with Palace. It's the same with Leicester. Less so actually with Aston Villa. They are scoring. They've 6 goals, 4 in 6 games. So at least that's a goal a game. But Everton 1 goal, and I think that was an own goal. West Ham 3, Crystal Palace 3, Leicester 2. There's a theme for sure in these teams that they're not converting. And whether that's about getting in a quality number 9 or whether it's a mentality thing, I don't know.
I think it feels like more of a mentality thing. It almost feels like I don't think they have the belief that they can break through like these teams' defences. It barely feels like there's any kind of entry, really, like any kind of genuine entry into sort of goal scoring position sometimes. And I feel like there's that doubt in themselves in a way.
With like a West Ham and an Everton, I've seen them create the chances and it's not putting them to bed. And that was an issue. Do you know what? Let's just get on to West Ham. That was an issue last season as well, was that they were creating opportunities and not putting them to bed. And that must be so frustrating because you're getting to a point now where you're like, right, well, everything we're doing is leading us up to the goal. I mean, Arsenal have the same, and we're not putting it in the back of the net. And it's just costing them so drastically.
Well, just to add in some further context there. So West Ham lost 2-1 to Spurs despite taking the lead at half-time. Spurs obviously walked away with 3 points after a bizarre own goal in stoppage time, again from Camilla Siez.
God love her.
She lobbed it over her own goalkeeper for 18 yards, which is quite an impressive feat.
Like if it was the other way around, it would have been a great finish.
Yeah, it might have made.
But I've watched that back multiple times just to be like, how did that happen?
Yes, it is.
She must have just caught it wrong.
It's not. It wasn't great.
It's almost like I'll just boot this out, and actually she caught it really nicely.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a clean strike. The technique was there.
God, but like, can you imagine your moments from the final whistle? And you're going to get a much needed point, a point to maybe build on to get you out of this feckin' 3-team bottom of the table, like just to get you just a little bit away from that and maybe think, right, let's build on this. Oh, it's such a gutting way to lose that game.
Yeah, I do have a lot of I'm in the feels
empathy.
For sure. Well, West Ham are obviously a team who are struggling in front of goal. They were up against a team who conceded 13 goals in 5 league games. Rach, what do you kind of make of this?
Well, this is the thing. Like, I mean, I think Spurs were, on paper probably the better team, but West Ham created 12 shots, 4 of them on target. So it's not like this is what I'm saying. They are getting these opportunities. I do think they struggle to be consistent across 90 minutes as well as kind of struggling in front of goal, which is frustrating because I feel like they do have players who can get those goals for them. Ueki's been great for them. Vivian Assayi as well. There are players that can put the ball in the back of the net, but it's hard. I just think had they gotten a draw out of this, it just would have been a bit of a stepping stone. And I think to have another defeat will be, got to go again, pick the team up. It's hard. It's hard for these teams at the bottom of the table that have gone so many games, 5 games, 6 games without a win. It's tough. But I do feel like it's for a lot of them, you just got to get that first win to get the monkey off your back,
Well, they take on Leicester on Sunday, so that could be a very good chance for them to start picking up some points. But it's hard to say because Leicester, again, that's not going to be an easy game. I think where West Ham have been so far. So let's wait and see, Rach.